Good evening and greetings from the Chennai chapter of INTACH. I'm Sujata Shankar, convener, and happy to welcome each of you to this engaging session on bringing our gods home. We're very glad that Vijay Kumar, who has been combating the rampant looting of Indian art treasures, is here with us today to share his experiences in the successful restitution of many of these treasures, bringing them back home to where they belong. We're doubly delighted that Dr. Chitra Madhavan, who's herself an expert on bronzes, among many other things, will present her observations after the talk. A warm welcome to both of you. A mandatory brief about INTACH, which is an acronym for the Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage. It was set up in 1984, 38 years ago, as a not-for-profit organization. INTACH's mission to conserve heritage is based on the belief that living in harmony with heritage enhances the quality of life. And preserving heritage is the duty of every citizen of India as laid down in the Constitution of India. INTACH endeavors to achieve this vision by sensitizing the public about the pluralistic cultural legacy of the country, protecting and preserving India's living, built, and natural heritage, documenting unprotected buildings of archaeological, architectural, historic, and aesthetic significance, as well as cultural resources, developing heritage policies and regulations, providing expertise in the field of conservation, restoration, and preservation, encouraging capacity building by developing skills through training programs, and undertaking emergency response measures during natural and man-made disasters, supporting the local administration when heritage is threatened. It is through the passion and strength of volunteers across over 200 chapters nationwide, as well as the expertise of the various divisions of INTACH, that the organization takes its vision forward. At Chennai chapter, we have, through talks, programs, and other initiatives, been creating awareness about the significance of our heritage, currently, of course, online like today. I have the pleasure of introducing the speaker of the evening. Vijay and his core team of volunteers formed India Pride Project, a social media initiative in early 2014, realizing that art treasures were being stolen for acquisition overseas. He sought to fight this and targeted the return of hundreds of stolen gods back to India. Vijay Kumar hails from Namma, Chennai, and in his profession is a fellow of the Cost and Management Accountants of India and fellow of the Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers, London. He currently lives in Singapore, working with a shipping company. Sculpture and Indian temple art have been a passion. Largely self-taught, he started documenting his learnings in Tamil and English on his bilingual blog site, Poetry in Stone, in 2007, and has been writing extensively on sculpture and art appreciation. He has, in the past few years, been instrumental in the tracking of high-profile trafficked artifacts and has worked closely with various global organizations assisting in the restitution efforts, including the dramatic return of the Vriddhachalam Ardhanari, Sri Purandan Nataraja from Australia, Sri Purandan Uma from ACM Singapore, and the Kashmir Tengapura Durga from Germany. The case of the Nalanda bronze Buddha had baffled experts since 1961, and this came back from London recently, as also other restitutions from the US. The most recent success was last week when the Bodhisattva Padmapani, stolen from Bihar and recovered in Milan, returned home. He's also authored the book Idol Thief, which traces the journey of one of the most well-known thieves of idols. To unravel the mystery of the missing gods, welcome Vijay Kumar. Over to you.
Thank you, and thanks INTACH, and thanks, Madam, for this excellent opportunity that we can share some more good news. We are working on something shortly. Well, I was hoping it will be done today, but we had to postpone it to 1st of March, and it's deeply connected with Chennai. So unfortunately, because it's not yet done, I just leave this as a rider. Check the news after March 1st, and you will see something that we have done again for Chennai that's going to shake the art market as well. So without much ado, I'm more a show and tell person. So I'm just going to start my slideshow, and thanks again for everybody joining in. So I've just scheduled this talk into 3 sessions. The first session, basically to sensitize audiences who are not aware of this. And before that, a short profile of us. We are a team of volunteers. We don't do this for money, so we don't need your money. We are not looking for donations. We are not looking for sponsorships. We are not looking for awards or rewards. So don't dominate us for any awards or rewards. We are doing it as a duty of a common citizen. And by that virtue, any common citizen can write to us. And if you want to read more about our work, you can just look at our hashtag. It's called Bring Our Gods Home. And we called it the India Pride Project because we wanted to restore India's pride. And you will see why we said restoring India's pride and how bad India's reputation, our gods were treated shortly. Before I start more into this, I wanted to dedicate this, as usual, my talks I start with the dedication to the unknown artists and sculptors who created these divine works of art. Fantastic people who chose to remain anonymous, created these brilliant works of art. To the kings and patrons and chieftains who supported them, without their scholarship, it wouldn't have happened. And to people like you and me who continue to enjoy them. And without us, where is a great actor or an artist? To me, I wanted to show this as the main objective, why we call it Bring Our Gods Home. And what you're seeing is a Vijayanagara era bronze murti that we recovered a couple of years ago from London. And there you see the purpose of what's happening is the gods are being made into being showpiece curios. And when they come back, what happens to them? And what happens to them? It's a half. I wouldn't say that we have done 3/4. The Tirunelveli is still waiting to come back from Singapore. Once he comes back, we hope we will share the bigger news. But you can actually see what happens to gods as they come back home. I'll talk about this case in a little while. Also, a lot of people who've read my book, not trying to pitch my book here, talk about the first chapter. And a lot of people are not aware of what happens with the concept of buried hoards. A lot of time there were invasions into South India, especially our ancestors, the custodians, went to the scriptures, the agamas, and it prescribed how to safeguard our murtis. And our murtis, as you know, we call it Tirumeni in Tamil, literally being bodies of God, and they buried them for safety. If they did not have time, they would basically put them into wells or ponds or lakes for safekeeping. But for some reason, these bronzes that were so safeguarded by our custodians could not be brought back to worship, even though the threat remained only for a short period. The only reason that we could think of is the custodians were either driven away, as is commonly believed, or they were put to the sword. But they took their secrets. They gave up their lives protecting our gods. This is one such murti. No, this was not from Kiladi. A lot of names coming up. This was unearthed about 18 months ago. And he is a Chola Nataraja that was found buried when somebody was constructing in a village in Tamil Nadu. And here you can see the beauty of the concept of Chola bronze casting. Please take a look at it. I'm not going to go into it for paucity of time, the lost wax method, the beauty of the Lord. And then after 600 years, he's been buried. He just comes out in a slight wash and he's back to being the God that he is. And people have already started worshipping. And this to me is the greatest reward that we can give as a token of support to sacrifice our ancestors. And sadly, these are the bronzes that have been smuggled a lot out of India. Buried hoards form about 80% from also from illicit digs that get smuggled. I'll show you more about it. And why I wanted to show this in more detail was the patina. What you see here is not just incrustations of sand that are on the bronze. Uh, the bronze actually has something like a greenish patina that is akin to rust and steel, but is good. So the greenish patina is sought out by collectors not just for their artistic appeal, but also as proof that it is not from an under worship site, so that there are no photographs exist. So they are free to buy it once it's smuggled out of India, and it poses a very credible threat for us because we don't have any photos to prove the theft. Once it leaves India's borders, almost impossible to recover them. Compare that to a bronze under worship. This, of course, is the great Adavalan or the Tanjavur Big Temple Pradeshwara. Of course, it's been a little bit of face has been recut and polished during the Maratha times. But as you can see, the goldish sheen that comes from constant worship. The priest would lovingly take care of them, and that sheen comes from under worship. So just keep that in the back of your mind to understand the difference between a under worship bronze and a bronze that's basically been buried. Uh, so you can actually see it's almost the radiant smile for 1,000 years, and that smile still exists, and it's a testament to the skill of our craftsmen. Now, there are other cases as well. I'm not going to say, since this is a forum for INTACH, we don't take care of our treasure. This is actually not buried bronze. This is a bronze that's in a temple site. Again, thanks to each foundation who supplied us this. This is the condition of our sacred bronzes in some of our temples. So I do hope that at least we take care of our bronzes going ahead. So what happens to these bronzes when they go out of India? So here you see a very popular shop in New York, an auction going on. It's a private sales affair that's going on, where people are actually bidding on our gods with price tags. And this was what we wanted to stop. And this is why we called it India Pride Project, to restore India's pride, one artifact, one god, one murti at a time. And to see the gods that are so well taken care of in India, they're literally taken care by the priests as living beings. They're being fed, they're bathed, they're clothed. Ceremonies are done to them. And they go back to the Paliyare, the sleeping quarters, singing lullabies. And to see them converted to showpiece curios is really bad. And I hope the Western collectors who are seeing this video understands that they are playing with a living culture. And what do they do after buying it? This is what happens, and this is not a Photoshop. This is an actual swimming pool of a billionaire in America. And I can show you multiple examples, but it's really hard tonguing to see them being reduced to being ornamental showpiece curios. Collecting is a colonial fetish. So a lot of people ask me why I'm going after currencies, but yes, the laws are not very easy. There is a growing appetite in the West. There is an atmosphere and climate to return stolen goods, including colonial loot, but it's still not caught up in India. I give you this classic example to show this. This is the brilliant Nataraja that is currently in the Danish Museum. For a lot of people who don't know, Tamil Nadu had a Danish colony in Trankebar when the Danish collector Peter Anker was actually digging to expand his walls, and he found a collection of 30 buried bronzes, a collection of ceremonies and ritual objects. He took them with him and he sold it to the Prince of Denmark. They are currently in the Danish National Museum. But what is interesting is the narrative. The narrative is that he sold or he bought it from the locals, and this is how the narrative has been built, that he bought it from the locals. But the real truth, if you go back to the original Danish records, they talk about the priest basically crying. And finally, Peter Anker, who actually studied these bronzes in more detail. In fact, even before he was appointed for this post, he was in Hull reading British records, understanding how these bronzes came to this state. And so he exactly knew what these bronzes were buried for. And he basically told the priest that there is no local temple nearby that can take these bronzes, which is a blatant lie. The Masulana Chola temple is just 10 meters from the dig spot. And more obviously, these bronzes were from that temple. But what happened is he actually gave them a bag of rice and some betel nuts. And that was what he paid. So we wanted to change these narratives. The similar case of this beautiful Vishnu and consorts, that was from a temple in Coimbatore. It's a very interesting story, long story, but I'll come back to it. The temple bid for it was a buried bronze. They were outbid by Lord Curzon. They're currently in the V&A, where the temple languishes without its bronze. Not just that, we've had cases of these brilliant. This is probably the only representation portrait bronze of Kulothunga that was in the Kalahasti temple until the 1930s, missing since then, never to have surfaced again. So we don't know where this bronze is for the last 90 years. So is its queen. Both of them have been missing for the last 90 years, and this is what happens. The scholarship is lost. So this we don't know where they are lying. And this is happening in plain sight. And people have to be sensitized to understand that they have been sold a lie. For example, in this Rama group, it takes just a few minutes for you to realize the Lakshmana is a modern replica. The Rama and Sita original Chola bronzes. Similarly, is this case where the Rama's original Sita is a modern replica. So what happens to all these? They are being sold openly in auctions, including this very interesting object that was apparently with the collection of a famous dancer, Ram Gopal. Now, this was a Gauri from the Kailasnath temple in Kanchipuram. Now, what happens to this? It comes out to auction later in Europe, and there every reference to her is gone. She just becomes a large bronze figure of Parvati, and she sold for almost $1 million. And that's it. The context is lost, and she's just become a showpiece curio. We have a lot of these cases. I'm just going to show you this beautiful Vijayanagara bronze. It's again no provenance information available. Sold in 2007 for $3 million, and we're talking US dollars here. Now, who are the buyers, and how blatant are they? Today, we can say that the Metropolitan Museum is exhibiting. The first exhibit in India section is this pot from the Shunga dynasty that's in the West Bengal Orissa border. And this site was excavated only in 1968. And this is a gift, and the gift in honor of Subhash Kapoor's daughter. And the Met continues to display this. And there are hundreds of terracottas that are from this fantastic dynasty, and no Indian textbook talks about the Shunga dynasty, and all of them are 2,200 to 2,000 years old. These beautiful terracottas have been pillaged, and every museum in the world, every collector, every auction, you get these terracottas. And later I'll show you how they were shipped out of India. They're flat packed and couriered out. 99% of them have arrived broken. And these we can share from confidential exchanges we have seen with dealers that are currently part of the US Seychelles. So whenever we go to museums abroad, the basic questions are not asked. Like you see this fantastic Varaha that is missing its feet, and people think it's accidental damage. It's not accidental at all, and we can show that this is from the sacred site of Devgarh. People have gone there. It's a small hillock. About 12 years ago, this is what happened. The feet were cruelly hacked by robbers who broke the statue. And why did they do that? Because the feet is anchored to this larger pedestal which weighs about 4 tons. So obviously, this is why these objects are being mutilated. And how bad is this? They are mutilated to also facilitate shipment. And this was a recent sale that object was on offer in the US. And you actually see willfully they've cut it into portions and then reassembled it in the US. Similarly, there are headhunters typically still who go after this. This is a brilliant Umri site where one of the few temples for the sun god. And here you see set has been crudely hacked off for sale in Europe. Thailand, for example, exhibits these boards. I wish INTACH would sponsor such. Be put in our airports to warn tourists not to buy these at least. And then to stop against this 3 million, we have old, good old Natraj lock to safeguard our Natraja. Now, we need to recognize that we have a problem. I have multiple instances where both the center and the state seem to brush aside the problem, saying that it's only 2 or 3 that have gone. And many times we have said that there are thousands of idols that are going, and people ask us, what is the basis of this? And I show you this. This is a news report that came out, not now, not in the 2000s, not in 1990, in 1986. And what was the reason for this to come? I'll disclose in a while. And this is a CAG report. And the CAG report basically says that India, being a champion of the cause to stop illicit trafficking of antiquities, India and Italy pushed the UN to come up with a 1970 statute. The 1970 UN convention was on the background of some very good work done by India and Italy. And it was, okay, it has got its shortcomings, which we will see in a while, that it cannot be retrospective and it's more like a guideline. But then what did we do after that? In 1976 to 2000, India brought back 19 objects. Just keep that in your mind, 19. And from 2001 to 2013, when this report came out, 2012, it was zero. And what happened in this interim was a big case wherein a BBC reporter, Peter Watson, did a sting operation with Sotheby's in the UK. This was actually chronicled in his book as well. It's available on Amazon. Please take a look at it. There's one chapter on India. So basically, Sotheby's representatives used to come to India on recce trips. They used to go with soul scholars and smugglers. They used to pick and choose objects for loot, and then it was looted. It was not some random theft. It was a targeted looting where the best of Indian art was priced, and then it was stolen. And through a host of 4 Swiss companies, moved into UK with a Swiss provenance. Now, what happened after that? This is one case which we are still searching. This is a 5-ton Varaha sculpture. The robbers actually tied a steel iron chain around its legs, yanked it to a truck, and pulled it, breaking its legs. It's found its way into Switzerland, and we listed it last year with our friends in the US as the one of the most top 10 wanted objects. We know the gallery, but Swiss laws are not too easy. What happened after that? India did not push ahead. Sotheby's closed their office in UK, moved to the US. The two guys who were actually the India heads you see on the screen, who were the ones who came to India. They actually submitted travel bills for their recce trips in India. They were sacked, and they went and started their own antique shop, which we'll come to in a while. Vaman Gia was named in the book as one of the 3 smuggling entities, major smugglings, and they were caught on camera saying, "Do you want the Taj Mahal? Let me know. I'll ship it out and cart crates for you." This was a raid that happened in Vaman Gia's Delhi farmhouses. About 838 antiquities were recovered. 440 were certified as antiquities. The rest were fakes. Obviously, they showed the fakes for the export license and exported the originals. To this day, they are sitting in the police station as evidence. Vaman Gia was acquitted in 2013 for want of evidence. Not a single one of the purportedly 10,000 artifacts he sold via Sotheby's London never came back. A few did come back, but they came back as photographs. No arrests, no detail, and the ASI has not yet appealed the verdict despite what we did. And what we did was, when we will talk about the Nalanda Buddha case, I'll show you. This dancing Nataraja from Rajasthan, the robbers actually made a replica, left the replica near the site. The police thought they had recovered the original. The original was already shipped to the UK. So in 2004, when Vaman Gia was arrested in 2003, the collector in the UK handed it over to the Indian High Commission. And there it sat in that display till 2019. So in 2018, when we were doing the restitution ceremony, we saw, and this was what we were searching for almost 15 years, and this was the evidence that was sitting inside the Indian High Commission. It has since been restituted, repatriated to India. Recently, we had this fantastic case which we managed to crack with a very good friend, Mr. Chris of Art Recovery International. And this was a sister sculpture from Lokahari. You saw the ram-headed yogini, that is, if you have been to the National Museum, that was recovered from Paris in 2013. And this object, she was for sale, and it was from the same site. This is from Vidya Deja's book, published book when they were still in situ in Lokahari. This entire site has been pillaged. We are missing about 62 of them. 4 of them have been broken and are there. Now, what happened to this was interesting. So this came back, and when Chris was in a farmhouse outside of UK, he chanced on this exhibit. Now, this is how this prized yogini was. And the moment I saw it, I knew it was her, because I've been searching for her ever since I read Peter Watson's book. And she was listed for sale by Sotheby's in 1988, pulled out. And imagine a published antiquity in UK, where part of a BBC show stayed underground for 22 years or 32 years. And then we managed. So I have some video clips. If you have time, I'll show you how the recovery happened. And finally, based on our work, in Jan of this year. This is what happened. She's back, and we're currently working to bring her back because she's quite heavy and tall. She's going to be back in India soon. In Tamil Nadu has its own share of cases, but most of these cases we treated them as photo ops. A lot of people claim credit for bringing back these murtis. Great job. So the Patu Nataraja came back from London. Everybody had a great time. But what happened to it was the buyer was not in London. The buyer was a Canadian company called Bumper Development Corporation, and India never went after Bumper Development Corporation. We sued, we won in London. The Nataraja came back, everybody happy. But then what did we do after that? So great. Bumper Development Corporation donated almost 80 sculptures to the Glenbow Museum in 2013. None of them had any provenance paperwork. And in 2014, they went bust. They tried to sell their artifact, balance of the artifact collection to auction houses. Because they don't have provenance, they could not sell. Nobody knows what happened to that collection. So what more had gone from India? What more of this 80 that the Glenbow Museum acquired? No questions have been asked so far. Similar is the case of the Sivapuram Nataraja, another case that we claim that we have done a great deal. 6 bronzes were unearthed: Nataraja, Samandar, Somaskandar, Pulayar, and Ganesha, and 2 Devis from the field. It's interesting. Here, the robber was not the finder. He actually gave it to the temple. The temple authorities gave it to a Stapati to clean. The Stapati made fakes of all 6 of them in 1956. So imagine in 1956, the racket of faking had already started, and fake bronzes were. But what we do, we did not check our stock of fake bronzes. I will go to that later. More so, who was the buyer? The buyer was Norton Simon. At that time, the richest man in the history of the world. And what did Norton Simon do? He pressurized the US government. This is a WikiLeaks case. And what happened? The temple was blissfully displaying the 6 fakes. A British museum curator, Douglas Barrett, came. He was writing a book on Chola bronzes. He went to the temple. He said, these are fakes. The original was the dealer in Bombay. Who was the Bombay dealer? The Bombay dealer was Lance Dane. Lance Dane was a person who published this commemorative volume of the British King and Queen's arrival in Chennai in 1960. The back cover of the book, he had the audacity to put the original Sivapuram Nataraja, by which time when our police went to Bombay, Lance Dane already sold it to another dealer, to UK, and Norton Simon acquired it for $1 million. And he famously said on to the New York Times, hell yes, I know it's smuggled, so what? We sued with threatened to sue, and Lance Dane actually died. He was arrested, but then he died in 2012. Great collector, archaeologist. What else? Nobody knows. Why? Because none of the other 5 bronzes ever came back. India signed a out-of-court settlement with Norton Simon, which allowed him to return the bronze after a 10-year public display in a public museum. No questions were asked. Norton Simon did not get his refund for $1 million, but he got a refund, which we know from who he bought it from. But then a second line was introduced, which allowed Norton Simon to buy any work of Indian art for a 2-year period. So between 1972 and 1974, I'll show you what he did. So he did this. So this is P.R. Srinivasan's book, available in the Chennai Museum, $370. It's a wonderful purchase. Please buy it. And this is the Somaskanda that was found along with the Nataraja. It is currently on display in the Norton Simon Museum, ridiculously with the provenance plate reading Sivapuram, year of accession 1972. Not only that, these are the bronzes that Norton pushed in, and bulk of it we now know are all stolen from sites. We have made a claim, but nobody knows why the second was introduced. And these are the originals and the fakes, and you can actually see how closely the Sabadi made those fakes. And what should we have done faced with this data? We knew people are faking bronzes, but we did not check. 3 years ago, we found in Sundara Perumal Koil this beautiful Trimangai Alvar fake. The original was in Oxford, in the Ashmolean Museum. The temple said, no, the bronze is with us. We checked, it was the fake. And not only that, the Ashmolean is still not giving it back. They've said they will consider giving it back based on the evidence. But interestingly, Sundara Perumal Koil had 6 more bronzes, all fake. The originals we've identified, most are in the US. We are working to bring it back. So these are all. So if we had audited at that time the collections of our temples, or gone after the perpetrators of the crime, we could have actually got more. Most shockingly, in 1986, this happened. This beautiful Nataraja Thiruvelikudi was actually sold by a London dealer to the Kimball Museum in America. India police, along with Scotland Yard, raided the gallery. They found 240 icons and seized it. They went to the house of the owner of the gallery, LP Choraria. They seized 41. So 281 Indian idols were seized in London. One was sold to the Kimball Museum. Only the Kimball Museum Nataraja came back. There is no record of this raid anywhere in India police, nor in Scotland Yard, except for this report in India Today. And what is interesting is the priest who went, who was specially flown to London, said, I could recognize the idols just as a mother could recognize her missing children, and they were traced and brought back to her. I'll let you digest that information. This was when this news article came. And even with this, we are not able to even pick up the old case. Nobody knows what happened to this 281 items. So a lot of things have happened. Our scholars have been working hand in glove. In most of the objects that you see in major museums, and this is a Bollywood collection, a Bollywood icon who produced 1990s, they were raided. This was his warehouse, farmhouse in New York, in Delhi that was raided. So this is a pattern that keeps repeating again and again and again and again and again. Every 10 years, we keep asking these questions. So this is another case in The Hague where they found a shipment from Chennai for a Delhi exporter. 800 antiquities were seized in Hague. CBI went to Hague, and then the case papers went missing. Nobody knows what happened to this. Remember the CAG report, only 19 have come back since 1977 to 2012. All these cases have been pushed under the carpet. Now, how bad is this? So India and Italy actually put in this report in UNDSRI. And you actually see in the 1960s, they actually had state-wise report of thefts. And you're going to see how they had data. And their data, and you see the almost every state had thefts every year, even after the convention came into place. And suddenly all these have gone out. There are no such statistics available anywhere. More than that, they say about a Madras report, which talks, I'm trying to get this report, I've not been able to get it. They talk about idols moving via Pondicherry or by Pondicherry residents out of Tamil Nadu. And this is something that happened even during the Subhash Kapoor case, and we have not learned from our mistakes. I quote the UN 1970 convention. It's just a facilitator. India has not signed the UNDROID convention. I don't want to go cost you of time, but I just show the screen so that we can. A lot of people, especially in the art market cabal in India, talk about how India's 100-year-old is archaic regulation. The UN statute basically says anything over 100 years is deemed an antiquity. It's not India's ruling. Secondly, India, as part of this being a signatory, said a lot of things, and I hear the INTACH Charter. So this was what India committed to do. They would see G, for example, appropriate publicity is given to the disappearance of any item of cultural property. F, education measures to simulate, develop respect of heritage. So what have we done on that? So we'll come back to the basics in a while. But again, the UN statute we can use successfully if there is a documented evidence that the theft happened after 1970. And we've managed to prove in a lot of cases, but people and the art market thinks that 1970 is some Lakshman Rekha. So anything purchased prior to 1970 is somehow legit. It's not the case. It just means that if it's 1970 or afterwards, we just use the statute. The current owner state has 30 days to refute our claim. If our claim is correct and substantiated by proof, the object is forfeit to India. If it's prior to 1970, India has its own heritage laws right from 1878. So we have to just go to court, and so it doesn't mean anything. India's Antiquity Act is another much maligned act, and it's a toothless act, and today the government is trying to further dilute it. So a lot of people talk about the cumbersome registration process. So please take a look. This is the simple one-pager that you need to provide to the registering body. That so the registration officer will ask you, he has to do conduct an audit on how you obtained it. And once you prove it, it's yours. People have not done that. Now we come to the role and competency of experts. A lot of scholars, right from pre-independence, this is Dubriol, supposed to be one of the brilliant minds of the Pallava study. Dubriol was agent of a known Chinese smuggler. He was a procurement agent for C.T. Lu. These are from Padma Kemal Madam's wonderful book, The Dispersed Yoginis. And what did Dubriol do? This is what he did. In between 1920 and 1937, he pillaged Kanchipuram and surrounding, especially Kaveri Pakam, and not only stone bronzes. You look at any major collection, including the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, the Louvre, the British Museum, all of them have been purchased via CT Louvre, in turn purchased from, sourced from Dubriol. We come to present day, we talk about another great scholar, apparently, now deceased Douglas Latchford and his conspirator in crime, Emma Bunker. They bought these brilliant works of Khmer, and he was officially indicted in the US, but because of ill health, he couldn't. He's tired of collecting Indian objects, and this is his apartment in Bangkok where he's posing proudly with Chola Somaskanda. Now, this is his last party which he threw to his friends, and you can actually have a game. See how many bronzes. On the left is his apartment in London, and on the right is he with his daughter, prominently displaying Chola bronzes. And this is the dinner that he's having with the Buddhist monks, and you can actually see so many of our stolen bronzes right there in your front. Now, Cambodia has successfully sued, and the daughter is accepted to return 200 of her leftover collection to Cambodia. And the first tranche has come, as you can see here. What did India do? Nothing. We have not even formally lodged a complaint to get back all these bronzes that are now orphaned. Luckily for us, this we'll see Sri Purandan's case in a while. This beautiful Chandrasekhara from Sri Purandan was named as evidence in the Subhash Kapoor case, and this is actually a robber photo that was used. And as luck could have it, Douglas Latchford had bought this from Subhash Kapoor. So it was indicted, and we managed to track who the buyer in the US was, and he had two more bronzes. So he had this brilliant Nataraja and Uma with him, and this was this wonderful Chandrasekhara. And thanks to the French Institute in Pondicherry, Sri Purandan was documented before the theft, and we could provide them matching. And they were formally handed over to India in December of last year. These three are coming back. So what's happened with a lot of the other Kapoor objects, which we will see in a while, they were all authenticated by celebrated Lotus scholars. These scholars, me being a layman, when I look at it, when an unprovenance antiquity comes up, it should start the red flags. None of them ever reported these to the authorities. And you can actually see a lot of these objects, and we have been exposing all these sold scholars. This Nataraja was again certified for sale by a leading expert on Chola bronzes. Again, this is a bronze that is in clear Sakla, for which we have made a claim already. We know the temple from which it was stolen. And what is interesting is this was again bought by Doris Vienna. We talk about the Vienna case in a while. They actually had a Director General of Archaeology in India examining the Shiva Natarajan, assures that it's not among one of the bronzes reported as stolen from. It was not his job. It was not the job of the DG Archaeology. In case it's not the DG of Archaeology, it was another person. Out of respect for him, I'm not putting his name here. But what is interesting is this bronze is currently now matched to a stolen theft. Again, this is a Chola signet ring that it was in sale in Europe, and you actually see the provenance, the last owner, State Epigraphist, Archaeological Survey of India. So it's rampant, much so that even when we do matches, and this is a Brahma Brahmini that we got back from London, this was stolen from Rani Ki Bav, the Prime Minister State Gujarat. We had made the match, and the ASA sent an expert to London, and he gave a report that both were not the same. And when we chanced on this report, we knew that it was fake. Look at the fourth point where he said it's not the same. The figures in the bronze, in the sculpture that I'm seeing now are broken. In the original sculpture, that's the 1970 ASA site, it was intact. And the original image is there is no incrustations. It's dusty or dirty. Now I'm seeing it's clean. And these are all the flimsy reasons he gave, obviously, to give a fake report. Thankfully, we objected to it. We gave them the proof again, and we threatened to go public. And within 3 days, we get this wonderful mail. Dr. Mankodi, Kirit Mankodi, who's another champion supporter of ours, worked very hard. And this is now, they went to a lot of extent to hide the identity of the seller. So this was a dealer, so I have no comments in putting it up. So it's now back. If you go to Delhi, you see now we've a museum for return and restituted antiquities. It's there. We also worked with a lot of media and press in this temple chariot. This is not just stone idols or bronze idols that are there. This chariot was on sale in Bombay for 96 lakhs. And they had an expert to certify that it was 90 years old. You know, wood cannot be dated, nor so they just want to. So even within India, it was on sale for 96 lakhs. Imagine if it had been exported. And what they do, they deliberately allow the cards to go down and they split it up and then they sell it as decorative pieces. And this is a racket. And every temple in Tamil Nadu had these beautiful chariots deliberately left to rot so that they could be auctioned by this auction mafia for pittance and then sold out. Temple jewelry, this is something that I don't have one lifetime to follow. So a lot of these jewelry is also coming up for sale. We had our own Stapati who was advisor to the Tamil Nadu government on temple. And this was his statement finally in the court, which said that I'm no expert. I don't know. There are 5 different types of Stapatis. I work only in stone. I don't know nothing about temple architecture or bronzes, and he's certified bronzes. So a lot of stuff happens. And this is the expert report, which says that pre-Agama temples, if needed, you can remove them and replace them and realign. This is on the HRMC website. So a lot of change needs to be done. There are told scholars here, and then there are these intermediaries. This is a very famous, world-renowned restorer in London, and he's been extradited to the US on the Kapoor case, and this is what he did. And what you're seeing is a Sri Purana Nataraja in a safe house. The left side, you see the bronze color as it was stolen and kept in a temple. And this robber photo was sent out to prospective buyers. And then Kapoor bought this, shipped it to London, and he gave artificial chemicals to give it this greenish look. Remember, we talked about buried bronzes to make it look as though it's a buried bronze. He did a lot of such stuff, and this is another bronze that we identified based on an inscription at the base. It reads Tirupambal Gonathu Sivigai Nayagar. And this bronze was again restored by a restorer. So bad that imagine this was the case of an actual antiquity that was allowed for export from India. Just imagine how could this be exported of India? And what happened after that in London is this. So he cleaned it, made new legs, and then it's becoming very, very difficult to fight these guys unless they are called. Can it be stopped at origin? Very, very difficult. What you're seeing, this is a bronze that was marked for theft. Thankfully not stolen. A lot of our dispersed heritage, all of them are being targeted now. So the only thing that we can do is raising awareness and documenting them. And this is not just a Tamil Nadu problem. This is in Mount Abu, for example. And this site has been pillaged. There are thousands of temples and all of them have new. And not a single mutt is registered in FAR. And what happens to them? And this bronze is now being, this marble is being sold. This is the catalog of Kapoor. We've tracked, one has come back from Australia, another one is in a famous educational institution, university's museum in near New York. It's going to come back as well. So what do? We fight, but there is a lot of pushback from museums. For example, this is the Denver Museum, and this is a sealing damsel that we've been trying to get back for 12 years now. Now, what happened? This is the ASI, the black and white you're seeing is an ASI photograph. And what we do is this work, it's a published work, and every scratch, every crack has been masked. So it's just no doubt the same object, but still the Denver Museum is hanging on to it. And now they want a photo of the empty niche with the measurements. Now, what does this do? In 2014, this temple in Kikere in Karnataka was targeted by robbers. They broke open this grill, or rather this window, after which the horses bolted, they grilled up this window. And this is what happened. These beautiful damsels were broken. 6 of them are missing. Till date, since the last 8 years, they have not come up surface in the art market. The art market does what is called fencing. By fencing, they keep objects hidden till public memory is lost. And then they bring it out for sale. I'll show you a few examples. And this is the work that I do. I work on restitution, building awareness, act as a deterrent, influence policy and capacity building. INTACH does a lot of these programs, but I just wanted to show what we do. How volunteers can support us. And this is what we do. Whenever a bronze is found or anybody comes across an old book, they scan to us. Whenever see an auction catalog, they can scan to us. They report fines. Today we're using social media as and when so we are basically ensuring that they are documented immediately after they are found. Thefts are being reported so that we put out a lookout notice for them. So this knowledge base, we start working on it. So this is from the Sivan Kodal temple. And what you're seeing is currently this bronze is in Singapore. And this is the only documentation that is available in a 1916 book. And it just says Sivan Kodal Somaskanda. Now, we went and searched for this temple, and this is the temple. We made this banner so at least they can have a photograph of it in the temple. So these are the villages, and every time we go there, it's been now 7 years since we identified this temple. It was a rundown ruined temple. Now it's been spruced up. We hope the Somaskanda comes back soon. Similarly, the need for documentation and the need to publicize thefts. This was a Jain Murti that was stolen from Bihar. The Math reached out to us and they said, what do we do? I said, are you having a photograph? They said, yes, publish it. We published it in every vernacular press, and this is what happened. The robbers within 3 days threw it off in a local forest. If they know it is documented, they know it is unsellable, at least in the open market, its value goes down. So immediately after the theft, before it is smuggled out, if it's after say 2-3 years, then there is a reliable, there's a threat on the object. They will destroy the artifact. So if it's a long down theft, don't put it on social media. But if it's an immediate theft, please publish it. The importance of documentation, this is again something that we wanted to keep it as a puzzle. Herein lies a clue to a theft that was solved by, thanks to a German scholar. We will see that this is my book. This is the villain of my book, and behind him are 2 bronzes that his sister and manager have hidden in New York since 2013. The sister is out on bail on a $10,000 bond, and one more Nataraja Numa. So a total of 4 bronzes valued at $18.5 million are currently hidden in New York. Now, a modus operandi. So this is a buried hoard, Gina, that was unearthed when a farmer was digging a shrimp pond. How do we know it? Sanjeevi Ashokan actually wrote an email to Kapoor, and here he talks about how in Nagapatnam belt near Manargudi, a place called Dipambalkudi, the HRNC is not taking steps. That is, the Jain Buddha, they don't take care. So what does he do? So he cleaned it up and he basically sold it for less than 5,000 rupees for weight, and then it changed hands. The Pade paper Patra Kadamurmo, 10 of hands, and then it reached Sanjeevi Ashokan. And then he reached out to Nancy Vienna, and she comes and she offers him money, but then she is not able to come. And then another scholar, along with Dina Dayalan, a very reported heritage speaker, comes and inspects the bronze. And he tests it with chemical, and then he takes it, Kapoor buys it, and he sends it for very, very detailed chemical examination in the US to ensure it's the original bronze. And there you see actually the cut when the farmer struck it. So all this evidence was presented. Along with it, he's selling it. We managed to track it down, and it was exhibited in a very prestigious show in London. And based on a screen grab, we managed to track it, and it's currently seized in the US, and hopefully it will come back soon. Now, this was like a family business. This was Kapoor's father was actually indicted in a Vishnu bronze theft in 1972. But the case came up for hearing only in 1994, by which time the whole family had migrated out and taken US passport. Anyway, we'll come back. Can I take another 25 minutes? Is that okay? Ma'am? Okay. I'm just going to show some more very startling images where you actually see this fantastic Nataraja of Parvur. The robbers hit the temple in 2005. They took the bronze thinking it was made of gold to a jeweler in Coimbatore. Obviously, bronzes have very, very, very minuscule percentage of gold in them. They hacked off his hand. They sawed it with a saw, and they melted it for gold. There was obviously no gold. So in the ensuing argument, the jeweler was killed. So there was a murder case, and this is all done by Deen Dayalan. And what Deen Dayalan, he escaped to Bangkok for a few while till it cooled down, by which time, in this hand-cut state, the Nataraja went to London. And from there, he went to New York, with a new hand and appear on Kapoor's catalog in 2007. In 2 years, this is what happened. The restorer in London made a new hand. Just one look at it, he would have known that it is a crime that was committed. But more surprisingly, a month before Kapoor is arrested in September 2011, this bronze makes a miraculous recovery back and is quietly handed over to the police. Without a visa, passport, this Nataraja, without a hand, goes out of India, grows a new hand, goes to New York, and comes back to India. Thanks to efforts, finally, Deen Dayalan was arrested in 2016 June, and these were the raids. Until date, not a single temple or custodian has come up to claim any of these sculptures, which is quite sad. Not only that, based on our work with Homeland Security, these are the robber photos. So what is happening is there is a Navina Swayamvara that is going on when people are actually shown, prospective buyers are shown these photographs. You can see these two Doe Guardians have come back from Australia. They are currently in Delhi waiting for Corona to wind down so that there can be a handover ceremony, as is this Naga Devdas stroke Balarama with a lungi background. All of them have come back from Australia. So, Madam talked about the Ardhanari. I think this is something that you can all look at. I'm just going to skip the old. So this was our first success. A beautiful Chola Nataraja that was bought by the Art Gallery in New South Wales. It came back, and this was our first success, personally handed over by Tony Abbott to our Prime Minister, along with the Nataraja. Now, based on this was the first time when people started looking at us seriously. We lobbied, requested, nobody would give us information, and then we proved that whatever paperwork they had were all fake. And it's been a long fight, and finally, 3 months ago, Australia said we're giving back everything. So from 2014, they stalled, and despite, thanks to our pressure that we put on them, all the collections from them have come back, including this Satyankara from the same temple of Rudachalam. Not only that, we managed to crack another racket. This Buddha was sold by Nancy Vienna Galleries for $1 million to the National Gallery of Australia. He came back. We are now working for this, and this beautiful Samandar from Sirgari is going to come back. Is actually on the way back. So we managed to prove all that, plus this. So this amazing relief from Chandavaram was taken. 3 thefts happened in Chandavaram Site Museum of ASI over 9 months. First they came, they tied up the watchman, took 3 objects. 3 months later, they came back, they tied up the police, and they took 4 objects. 6 months later, they came, they drugged the police, extra police security force, and they took 7 objects. All these were broken and then stuck for transport, and this was returned by Australia, and the evidence is right there. So this was the evidence when it was still in situ. And what is interesting is we managed to track the affair after it came back, and we managed to track one to a Christie's sale. We still don't know who the buyer is. It was sold in 2012. We're hoping to find it. Plus, one was sold to the Louvre Abu Dhabi that still continues to exhibit it despite the evidence. These 2 are still missing. They are inscribed bronzes from Suttavalli. So all this is already covered in the book. So this is the dramatic return of the Sri Prandan Nataraja. Along with it, this is how, so he came back, he was placed in the same pedestal, and this is how the temple was spruced up. Singapore still has a lot more of Kapoor stuff, including this famous Nagapatnam Buddha that is now seized in America. What is interesting is this Buddha was loaned by Kapoor to the ACM for the Nalanda Way, which was opened by the then Prime Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh. And we now know that it was from a temple. Nobody has come up to tell that from which site. We don't know. This photograph exists because it's a robber offering photo. It is seized in America. But if somebody who's seeing this or anybody in the village, so obviously it's in a surrounding in Tamil Nadu. If somebody can come up and tell us from where it is, we will be able to recover it back. So after it was displayed in Singapore in this exhibition, it went back with double the price. It was for $1 million, then it went up to $2 million. Similarly, we also worked robber photos. So this robber photo was again used. We are now working on claiming this from Singapore. Finally, the Uma, also based on proof, came back to India. We worked with another of our volunteers to crack this in Toledo, this Ganesha. There was a small casting defect, and thanks to the French Institute of Pondicherry, 1967, they had actually captured it so beautifully that the blemish mark was the proof. When we gave the proof to the museum, they wrote to the Indian High Commission for 6 months. They received no response. Then they wrote to the council For 1 year, they received no response. They put these letters up and finally they gave it back to Homeland Security. So when Prime Minister Modi went there in June of 2016, these were given back and they came back to the village. Along with this, when Kapoor sold this Ganesha for almost $785,000, he donated $500,000 worth of Shunga and Gupta terracottas. And all this, we worked to come back. This Kanda, again, thanks to documentation from Tachur, you can actually see the small book had this photograph. And it was a Pallava era Skanda. Kapoor was trying to sell it as a Pandya period Shiva. So a lot of such stuff is seized. This is from Sendamangalam again. The Brahma is still listed missing, is not shown up in the market, but this dancing Samanda was seized. He is coming back. So how big was the loot of Subhash Kapoor? You can just see, I wanted to avoid this, but there is one interesting aspect of the seizure which I wanted to show here. So that's the INTACH logo for you. Was on sale by Kapoor. This is his catalog. And he did not, this is an endomorphic gangetic seal and a Monjaro seal. And not one, we had about 7 of these for sale. And how big was the loot? The loot was 2,622 objects valued at $107 million in 14 storage locations. It was unsold stock. He was in business for 35 years. So based on this, we did a lot of work with Homeland Security. This was Asia Week raids, seizures. About $20 million were seized, including this amazing Gina, who came back again. It's robber photo matching. These are all returns that have come back, and we've also worked with Dr. Mankodi on this. When she comes back, she will be the most expensive restricted object in the world. She was on sale for $15 million. The robbers actually stole it from a private temple, broke it into 3 parts, got a US restaurant to stick it back, and she's still waiting to come back home. This is the Singapore Durga that was sold by Kapoor, spotted by a soul scholar. Then he quietly sold it to the Leiden Museum in Germany. He's come back. We're working on a couple of cases recent. You've heard, you've seen us in the news. I'm just going to show a few. So to demonstrate the example that 1970 is not a Lakshman Rekha, we talk about this theft of 16 bronzes that were stolen from the Nalanda Site Museum. And these bronzes were stolen over a spate of 2 thefts. So museum thefts, you're going to hear more. So this, we had no proof until then. Currently, the principal economic advisor to Prime Minister Modi, Sanjeev Sanyal, he was talking to a retired ASO director, Dr. Bishwas. He gave us these photographs, a few of them that he had preserved from the original case notings. Based on that notings, we managed to prove this Buddha is currently the LACMA. We're still waiting for the LACMA to give back. But what interesting was one of our casual exchanges in our WhatsApp groups, one of our friends in Italy was visiting TEFAF. They sent us these photographs, and I had listed a few dealers to watch out for. And she sent us at, I think, 3 a.m. in the morning a photograph. And I say, that's me at 3:45 in the morning, saying, think I have a match. And we had a match. We reached out to the Dutch police and they managed to stop the sale. The dealer was a London dealer who disputed our claim because they had been very smart. The robbers broke the leaf that is on the right side of the Buddha and stuck it, welded it on the left side. But then our matching was so meticulous that ICOM experts came, ASA wrote a letter, ICOM experts came, they agreed to the match. And on August 15th of 2018, this ceremony happened. And in the background, you actually see the earlier Nataraj dancing Shiva that I talked about. So Buddha is currently back home. A lot more objects are coming back. We also worked with Michaela, another friend in Australia, for this Kalakurachi Nataraja that was stolen in 1972. It's come back. What is interesting now is the hero of this talk, the brilliant Pune Nallur Nataraja. This was a case wherein one of our friends had remembered a priest saying that in 1971, this Nataraja was stolen. And luckily, he had a photograph of a Tanjavur photo studio that had captured this bronze, and the custodians reached out to us. The case was closed. They had offered replacement statues in 1973, and the FIR was closed. The moment I saw the Nataraja, it was very familiar. It was from the Asian Society Museum. We reached out to law enforcement. We made the match, and this is just part of the work that we do. You can actually see how meticulous the matches is. It's undisputable, and based on that match, this is what happened. So he is the first object that forms part of the 248 statues that are going to come back. So it's not just Tamil Nadu Century. We worked in this beautiful Bhairava from Orissa, again published in Donaldson's book. So again, these are all the matches that we do. This was another dealer that was booked who was arrested in 2015, and he's also coming back in this lot. Italy case. So this is the Milan case that we worked on. It was a very, very interesting case. This case, it was a published antiquity stolen from a site near Gaya in Bihar. So the dealer in France was trying to sell it. We tried to stop the sale in France. They had done all the due diligence. They've got all the provenance certificates and all that, but France does not, has very, very tough laws for restitution. They have very, very specific. So inalienability of collections, they don't allow you. So we couldn't act in time. And for 2 years, I was languishing that maybe it has tipped the net. Thanks to Chris again from Art Recovery International, he managed to find that the current owner was in Milan. We reached out to him, gave him the proof, and based on, so this was the proof that we gave, matching the objects, and based on this, and the best thing was the FIR could not be found. And thanks again to Ms. Sanjeev Sanya, we reached out to senior IRS officials, IAS officials, and they managed to find us an FIR. We made a complete dossier and gave it to the owner in Milan, and he had no choice but to return the Buddha. And last week this happened. That's Chris, the smartest looking person in the center. So the most recent one was yesterday, and this is the very, very unique case of the Hanuman. What was interesting was this case. This is the press release of the Idle Wing. I don't want to comment on it. Success has a lot of others, but people should understand what they're talking about. Christie is not a person, and Christie.com is not the website of Christie's. I'll show you how we cracked it. So I was searching for another Hanuman, and I chanced on this very, very, very small thumbnail in the IFB archive. Earlier, it used to be manual. Now, thankfully, with a lot of support, the media, they've got a lot of sponsorships. They managed to make it online. And this very, very small Hanuman, it came up thrice for no reason. And it was really interesting because normally I'm a great fan of Chola bronzes and Chola art. I don't look at Nayaka or Vijayanagara bronzes in that detail. But there was something about this Hanuman and the way he was standing that was vaguely familiar. And I managed to recollect that it was on sale in 2014. And what is interesting was this was a theft from a temple in 2013. 2 full years after Kapoor's arrest in the same Arielur belt. The case was closed within 9 months, is untraceable. And within 6 months, it was up for auction by Christie's. We reached out to Homeland Security, our friends there, and with strength of the match, we managed to prove there was a small dent on the arm, and based on this, they managed to talk to Christie's. And for the first time, I think Christie's revealed that the buyer was somebody in Australia, and the Hanuman is back. So I have almost exceeded my limit. This is something that I wanted to put up. You've seen the crime, you've seen the successes. We are still scratching the surface. I appeal to INTACH to at least engage a lawyer to fight the state amendment. In India today, a temple theft carries a maximum sentence of 7 years and a fine of 2,000 rupees. In 1993, Section 380 of IPC was amended by a special state amendment in Tamil Nadu that says if you, and this section is itself a ridiculous section. It's housebreaking theft. And today, all temple thefts are under this section. And in Tamil Nadu, they have said any theft from a temple, the sentence is 3 years. That means you rob a house, it's 6 or 7 years. If you rob a temple, it's 3 years. Somebody please help us fight this amendment, take this bloody amendment off. And with that, I thank you for your support, and let's bring more of our gods home. Thank you.
Vijay, you made the most amazing feat of restitution sound like an everyday mundane occurrence. And how many of those? Really kudos to you and your team. And may you have the energy and strength to keep going. So we're very happy.
You want to hear more from us?
Sorry?
I think you're going to hear more from us.
Definitely. And I'm glad that, my little INTACH symbol is safe with me. So
Actually, this is about almost 4 feet tall, the original one. So it's really shocking that
mine's a little one.
Yeah.
So just a little one. And we're very happy that Dr. Chitra Madhavan is here today. Just as a brief introduction to her, a long biodata. But Chitra Madhavan has an MA and an MPhil in Indian history and a PhD in ancient history and archaeology. She's the recipient of 2 postdoctoral fellowships. Chitra is the author of 9 books and is also the general editor of books on the Srirangam temple, the Varadaraja Perumal temple, Kanchipuram, and the Srivilliputtur temples. She's guest faculty at various institutions such as Kalakshetra Foundation, Dakshin Chitra, and the Asian College of Journalism. And most importantly, she's a friend of INTACH. Thank you, Chitra, for being here. We'd love to hear your remarks.
Very good evening to all of you, and thank you so much, INTACH, for inviting me to Vijay's talk this evening. I would have attended in any case, Vijay. And like every other talk of yours that I've attended, I'm searching for words now, because, it's so hard hitting. The amount of work, the amount of research that you and your team have done is mind-blowing. The intent and the purpose are so sincere, so very blatantly sincere, that we can only be in total awe and admiration of all this wonderful work that you're doing for our country, for our art, for our heritage. I follow each and every one of your Facebook posts, and totally, I repeat, in awe of the very good work that you're doing. Starting from the dedication that we read at the beginning of your lecture, that itself was so very heartwarming. To see the deities that our ancestors once worshipped in each and every one of these temples, the fact that they were made in order to be worshipped, the fact that they were made by not only the fingers, but from the hearts and the minds and the souls of the stapasis and the shilpis who made them, who must have gone through so many being so very dedicated, with so much of prayer having gone into each, whether it's stone or bronze. And to understand the fact that they are being displayed at showcases with people with slippers on and drinks in their hands standing before them, it's only too heartbreaking. And I can imagine how much more so it must be for you, who have been doing this fantastic detective work for so many years. Even more terrible, and I got to know about it only today, is that in order to be shipped, our images, our gods were broken into several pieces and then packed and sent. I mean, this is atrocious. We don't have words even to say how bad we feel about something that is being done. And the legs of that Varaha, that exquisite Varaha that you showed us, the legs were all broken because they couldn't lift it from the pedestal, that heavy pedestal on which he was placed. Very, very sad. This is, as you use this phrase several times, targeted looting. They know where to look, they know how to get it, they know how to ship it, and the loss is entirely ours. And waiting for the Buddha to come back. If I've noted it right, 3:45 a.m., you could correctly identify something that a lady over the phone described to you, then you must be the absolute master of your subject.
I'll credit to my wife for putting up with somebody like me as well, I guess.
Also to your family for being so very supportive in the very dangerous role that you're playing. And also the very shocking fact that it is only 3 years for a temple theft. And what is it? What are we losing over here? It's not just an artifact. It is much more than an artifact. These are symbols of our worship, our thoughts for centuries and centuries. They've been worshipped You showed us that beautiful Adavallan in the Tanjavur temple, and you showed us how luminous he was because he has been in continuous worship. Yes, because each and every devotee who has gone there has given his heart and soul to the feet of that Nataraja. Why wouldn't he glow? And that glow comes back to us in return. So, what have we done by giving up on so many of our deities? Um, and you said, you used the phrase, we are only scratching the surface in the number of deities that we have brought back. May we scratch deeper with your guidance and with all your dedication. May we go deep into what, I don't have the words again, I'm fumbling for words now. All the terrible things that have happened. May our deities come back home. May you, with all our good wishes and our support, bring our gods back home. Thank you so much, Vijay, for that wonderful, touching, very heart-wrenching lecture. You have all our goodwill, all our best wishes, and thank you so much, INTACH, for this very lovely lecture. An evening very well spent, and it's gone deep into our hearts. And I hope all of us can, in some way or the other, help you at some point of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And I always look up to help from our friends and scholars in the media. And of course, INTACH has been great support. We are just vehicles. The gods choose the time and they've chosen us. And we hope we bring back more of our gods. I'm open to any questions, madam.
Evening, sir. I just want to add that this evening has been truly eye-opening. It is so like Chitraka said, it is so heart-wrenching to see that we ourselves have no respect or no credit for what we have, the treasures that we have been holding for so many decades. We have one question for you, sir. This is from Uma Balu. Could you guide me on a scholars, or could you guide me on scholars from India and abroad who have done extensive research on the Pallavas of Kanchi?
I think you just had the foremost speaker live, just giving me the intro. Chitra Madhavan madam would be the best guide who has done. But I said, please don't serve me. Vijay is fine for the work I do. I don't think the Queen is going to knight me any soon. I firmly believe that written works of scholars are only guiding posts or ladders. We need to do our own research. 100 books don't make up for a single site visit, so please go make your own inferences. There is still a lot more to decipher. So with due credit to scholars and experts, I think we have two of our best tools right in our heads. Go visit sites. If you go back to your Kuladevatas, go back to your temples. If you see footfall, then the tests don't happen. And don't just read books and stay at home.
Thank you so much, sir, for your guidance.
We will now open the floor. If you have any questions, you may please ask Mr. Vijay directly. If not, we can move.
Okay. So maybe I just left my email and contacts on the chat window. So if anybody wants to reach out, I would normally say this end of the talk. Most people feel very bad end of the talk and they want to help and support. I just tell them chill for a week. If after a week you still remember me, then get back to me. And quite often, not many people reach out. So let's see how many reach out. If you still, but yeah, there are multiple ways you can help us. Not with money. We don't take a dollar from the day we started. We don't need money. We don't need funding. The way I see that people are asking are legitimately so. There's a good question from Shruti Mohan Kumar, if I get the name right. When you visit museums outside India, ask for the provenance. Most museums don't display provenance. Provenance comes from the French word provenir, which basically means like your title deed. And most museums don't have proper provenance. And I would say with very much authority that there are less than 1 to 2% of legally sourced murtis around the world, especially when it comes to Indian and Khmer artifacts. So whenever you see an object, most museums you have covered, but please feel free, take a photograph. This is my request. Take one with you, take one without you, send us the one without you. And that's how we built the world's largest collection of Indian dispersed. So you can reach out to us, but just let us know which museum it is. If it's not already in my collection, or if it's a new exhibit or a new acquisition, we'll be almost always eager. If it's a shop or a private dealer, don't put yourself at risk. If they allow you to photograph it, but don't put yourself at risk. If you see an Indian object, if you think it's suspect, you've already seen how to see it's suspect. Reach out to us, give us the name of the location, then we will work with law enforcement or with our volunteers who know how to tackle these. Please don't put yourself at risk. This is the art market, especially in certain countries, are not great, and you could get fined or face lawsuits. So please express restraint or constraint. We will do our work, but quietly. Divakar sir, your microphone is muted.
Yeah, you have been going after such high profile the robbers. Have you ever had feared for your safety, or have you faced threats?
Not from the robbers, but it's actually the corrupt system that we are more worried about, because we are taking on a lot of other people. So two things. One is that we've been right of center always. We've not. I don't want to be judged with any colored lens. So for me, a Jain Murti, a Buddhist Murti, Indus artifacts is all part of our heritage, our ancestral treasures that we have to fight back. And number two, we're not doing it for fame, money, awards, or rewards. So I think we are doing God's work, and people either were earlier influenced into not working on this domain or sharing information. So we don't want, we loathe such scholars who had access to information, who had access to remedial measures for whatever their reasons they kept quiet. And they will allow this rot to continue. And I think we are doing God's work, and let Him decide what happens to them. Frankly, these are petty robbers in India. We are more worried about the collecting lobby cabal, the smuggling networks, the larger auction houses that have deep pockets. So we need to be really, really careful in the content that we put out. But thanks to the last decade and a half, I think people know not to mess with us. We've been right almost every time. And today, in fact, I was going on a UN conference up on stage, and then there was this tweet from a very good friend who works for a museum. He said, Vijay is up on stage, museum creators of the world, tighten your belts, who's he going to expose now? So I think we are the deterrent. Indian art was fair game before because India didn't care. So Indian art was free to sell. But now as a group, we are digital. And so if you touch Indian art, we will come after you. And I think that, and thanks to support from growing support, I think wherever Prime Minister before COVID was traveling, he came back with a stolen Murti. So I think that's invigorated the Babu Damman and the bureaucracy to finally take this as part of the agenda. I thank the DRI because they have formally included antiquities trafficking as part of the brief, along with not just going after drug smugglers and bullion smugglers and the guys who bring in flat screen LCD TVs. They are also going after, since last 2 years, murtis that are being stolen. And special thanks to the French Institute of Pondicherry, special thanks to ASI Delhi, and also the Idol Wing in Chennai. With great constraints, they're able to support. Most of these, we got help from them. We could do with more help from the center. In fact, we hope someday the center will start a centralized art squad like what Italy has done. So with your permission, I'd like to end this in a positive note. I'd like to play a video of a restitution so that all of us are happy and we can end. If that is all, so can I just play a restitution video so that you can all, that's our payment day. So I just want you to share, to see when we get paid. So can I? Just a second. It's not allowing me to show. Okay. It played before, but for some reason, hold on, it's not allowing me to play now. I'm just trying to close my screens, just a second.
India's national cultural heritage, a 12th century AD bronze image of Bhagwan Buddha. This is an incredible story of a 900-year-old cultural heritage that was stolen 57 years ago and is being returned back to India today. This image was among the 14 bronze statues stolen from the Archaeological Survey of India Museum at Nalanda in August 1961. Earlier this year, the High Commission and the Met Police were alerted by Mr. Vijay Kumar of India Pride Project about surfacing of this
further afield relationship.
Yeah, I just wanted to end on that positive note. You're going to see more of such happening. Thanks again to INTACH and everyone for giving me this opportunity to showcase what little we have done. We should have done more, and I'm sure we have so far recovered over 280. So the number, I should have mentioned it during the talk, it was 19 since till 2012. We have crossed 300 now, and we are hoping it will cross 1,000 in the next couple of years. Thank you.
That's fantastic. May I request Divakar to do the vote of thanks, please?
Many times we admire a breathtaking structure that is in front of us. However, we hardly spare a thought for the foundation that is hidden deep below the ground, which makes it possible for the superstructure to exist. Vijay and his dedicated team of volunteer sluts spent hours poring over catalogs, books, websites, and photos in a bid to identify the treasures that have been spirited away from our temples. The identification is followed by painstaking and often frustrating attempts to convince the illegal keepers of our gods to return them. While the glamour and publicity associated with the return of our treasures is attractive, what is not seen and appreciated is the effort that goes behind each restitution. Thanks, Vijay, for enlightening us on the backbreaking work you and your team do to bring our gods home to where they rightfully belong. As you point out, our gods are not meant to be displayed in galleries and museums. They are divine and have been lovingly created to be worshipped in temples. On behalf of INTACH Chennai chapter, I thank you for taking time to explain to us the efforts that go into this thankless mission. I'm sure IPP will succeed in its mission of bringing our gods home. We eagerly await the joyous news about the next restitution, maybe on March 1st. Thank you very much, Dr. Chitra, for your sharp and lucid remarks. I would like to thank all the guest participants for joining this session. Thanks are also due to Sujata Shankar for the introduction of the speaker and the volunteers of INTACH Chennai chapter who spare no efforts in ensuring we have a smooth session. Thank you all.
Thank you, Divakar sir. You've been a great friend, and thanks again for everyone. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
So much. That was wonderful. And as Chitra said, may you have more and more successes.
Yeah.